Good morning, or good day. I am quite tired because I was stung by how long it took to upload. We've got someone walking in the road, fair enough. Hello. And some people gathering bins. It just looked like one of those moments in a driving theory. If you've ever taken your driving test in the UK, you have to do a theory test beforehand, and you sit and watch a video. It's like hazard awareness. You have to click whenever you see hazards. That was just a whole set of things happening. It made me feel like that was what I was being tested on. So yes, I'm quite tired. You can see I'm already going off on tangents. But today I am going to get back home and probably focus on playing games and analysing them. And I probably also will do a little bit of work to try and map out the next week. Because at the moment yesterday I was just doing ad hoc work. I just played some games and did that puzzle. So I will probably make a decent plan so that I don't have to each day invent what I should be doing. As you saw yesterday, if you watched yesterday, I have a set of different activities I could be doing. So I should be taking those, arranging them in blocks, and going for it. One thing I didn't mention yesterday, which is something which I am using and I have been using previously, is an organisation called the Chess Dojo. So it is a set of 3 masters of chess who made a training program and community focused on helping people, mostly, well, I don't know if it's mostly, but it tends to be marketed towards the adult improver, pretty much. Me being a good example of that person. And it has some basic tenets, some principles, one of which is play really slow games and then spend lots of time analysing those games. When I posted on Reddit that I was doing this, I actually put in the Reddit post that I'm already considering using the Chess Dojo, but a whole lot of people said, just do that. One person in particular said, don't get distracted by Chessable videos, by YouTube, by other content. Just follow the Chess Dojo, letter for letter, word for word, and you'll be in good shape. So I am leaning towards just doing that. So I'm in one of the brackets, and so I have a series of materials. I've got some books and a bunch of middle games, end games, etc. So I am probably going to start mapping that onto my next week and finding some people to play with, because when you try to book very slow games, this is like starting with 60 minutes on your clock. Each person starts with an hour on their clock. It's quite hard to find people to play those games. It's quite hard as well if you don't use a community like this Chess Dojo have created. It's quite hard to get people to then talk about the game afterwards, which is very important. So it's very useful to have someone to sit down and go, okay, so why did you make that move? What were you thinking here? This was my plan. Did you understand that this was my plan? Because I noticed that you did something which meant that my plan didn't work. I don't know if that was intentional. That kind of discussion. And it's much better to have that discussion with the person you were playing. Well, obviously, most of these questions I just asked, yeah, they have to be with the person you're playing. I mentioned yesterday that I'm very excited to be working with Eric Rosen, so we'll be booking in our first session, maybe in December, but he's a busy man, so we'll have to play it by ear there. I also mentioned working with Dag Nielsen. There's a third person I may be working with. I won't mention their name yet because may not pan out, but I am in a very fortunate position. I have got to focus on the road more than talking. It's more important, especially when coming up to junctions. So yeah, there is a third person. I will hopefully get to work with them. I'm very excited about working with them as well. And I was just about to say that I am very lucky. This YouTube channel, the concept for it has been quite an appealing. Has been interesting enough to certain people that they are willing to put their time into it. So yeah, it's not something I take for granted. I am quite excited about that and grateful. All right, I think I'll be back home soon, so I will cut here and I'll see you in a minute. So today I have been trying to make a plan for the next few days, week and a half, and rather than rushing that and putting out something that wouldn't be as good as it could be, I'm going to probably do that tomorrow. I've been doing some research on interleaved practice from a guy on YouTube called Benjamin Keep. I will talk about him more tomorrow or the next day, but he's very good and he's introduced me to a bunch of stuff about learning, which I just never knew about. One of those is interleaved practice versus blocked practice. Rather than me trying to create a daily schedule, based on that knowledge I have now, which is a bit loose, I'm going to try and do some more research and then create a more robust schedule. But every day I'm going to be doing games, and now I'm going to be playing games, so I thought I would just play a classical game or a slow, considered classical on lichess. It's 30 minutes. Each player starts with 30 minutes and a 20-second increment, which means every time you make a move, you get 20 seconds added on. So I'll play a game now, and I will share with you the key bits. And then I will do what I expected to do today, tomorrow, or the next day with regard to actually showing you a plan, structure for how I'm gonna work. Okay, so let's start a game. All right, so I'm going to play. My opponent has played e4. I'm playing c5 as a response. I think it's called the Open Sicilian. My openings are so lacking that I don't even know the name of what I'm doing. But that will be something I improve on greatly. It's like very low-hanging fruit, to use a cliche. Some of the aspects of this opening. I'm going to put my bishop on this square probably, and my knight here, my queen here, probably this. This doesn't need to be developed because in moving this pawn, it's got its eyes open, and it may be developed in the future, but that's pretty much all I know. I think I got this from a short and sweet chessable course, and barely introduced myself to that before giving up. But it means that I don't know what to do in this position, for example. I know that if I took that pawn, then my opponent could take back and attack my rook, and I couldn't just do that, so because it's undefended. If I attack that pawn again, my opponent could just push. Okay. So I could go here attacking this pawn because it would be attacked twice. But that's quite easily resolved by something like that. But actually, would white want to do that? Because if I can force that move, then this knight doesn't have that square. And you might think, well, that's fine because they can go there, but actually that's not a great... You'd have to get this bishop out first and then move the knight there. And then the queen is hampered. Queen only has this square. If the queen goes there, then this bishop's hampered. So I don't think that's a good move. I don't think the knight going there is a good move. And it's not eyeing up that many central squares, whereas if it goes here, it is eyeing up 2 central squares rather than, in this case, 1 central square. And I'm defining central as being this. You could look at the center 16 squares and say that's the center, but I'm just talking about these super central squares. So I like the idea of that, actually. What else could white do here? You can't just push because, well, that's a lost rook. I'm going to do it. I don't think there's anything that white can do apart from push this pawn. It's often as soon as you make the move that you realize why you're wrong. So it's nice to notice. Oh yes, actually, white can do this. My opponent has played the bishop out. Quite a confusing move. Quite happy to lose that pawn. I really thought that c3, pawn c2 to c3, excuse me, would have been better. But they really want to be able to get that knight out to c3 themselves, I suppose. But like, if we take, then takes, and takes, threatening the rook. You can't go here or here. So the knight then has to come here, so it can't be about, unless it's just a miscalculation from my opponent, but it can't be about getting the knight to c3 because that's not happening. So, all right, let's check it. So takes, takes, takes. Attacking the rook. There's no checks against me, not even a silly one, where it's just a sacrificial check. So in that position, the rook is trapped. The knight's going to come to d2. And that means that the queen is now defending the rook. Or like this. My queen can come out to here or even just here. No, not here because the knight wants to go there. But, you know, the queen could just come back or to pin this knight just temporarily, but it is defended by the knight and the queen. So even if the king decided to castle. All right, any better moves? So just getting on and developing. This knight is pretty hampered at the moment. It could go here, I suppose. Okay, let's do it. Yep, all expected. This isn't much of a threat because this is still defended. I don't need to run away with the queen yet. What about this and this, attacking this bishop? I think I'd like to run away with the queen. If this, then I'm going to be going into one of these two squares, or all the way down to here. But I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be here, because then as soon as the queen comes to here or here, the rook can then come up to here, give another attack my queen a second time, and then my queen's gonna have to go here, for example. It's unnecessary. I think we come back with the queen, and then we have more squares to play with. Although still not great. Not that many squares. But decent. It's not the best move. Oh no, the rook can't do this. I'm going to take a pawn. And then the rook can come back. But yeah, that's not happening actually. So let's maybe get on with development. If we do this, we can castle next. We are castling without a dark squared bishop, and we've fianchettoed this pawn, which just means moving any one of these pawns up one is called fianchettoing, which is like an Italian term. I don't know what the etymology is of that. If this, then this. So you can't push, you can't attack that knight with a pawn straight away. It can't be pinned because their dark squared bishop is gone as well. I like that. We could also be doing this or this. But I don't want to. I want to castle. I want to castle reasonably soon. In slower games, I can often fall foul of thinking, I've got all the time in the world. I've got 22 minutes. But the speed of the game, like the speed of the moves being played, is a very different thing to the speed of the game, like the tempo in the game. So I think the slowness of the clock sometimes confuses me and makes me way more confident than I should be. So what that leads to me doing is not castling, for example, and then my opponent plays some series of forcing moves. I end up in a position where my king's under attack, and because my king sat in the middle without much defense, it's easy to be kicked around and just give my opponent more opportunities to be tactical successfully as well. So apologies, I am really tired today. I vastly underestimated how long it would take to quickly learn how to edit and upload my videos. So it was good. I learned a few little things, but it just took a little bit of time. And when I had to troubleshoot and solve problems that I hadn't solved before, I hadn't really given myself the time to do it. So now I am going off very little sleep and way less coherent, I think. And sometimes being tired it's not directly beneficial, but it indirectly makes me better at certain things. So, for example, I'm way more aware that I could make stupid, very basic mistakes. So I'm double checking. I'm being quite systematic. I'm not trusting my intuition in this game, for example. So I'm just before making a move, I am more likely to. I'm assuming I'm more likely to make a mistake. So I'm way more careful. Okay, so candidate moves. My opponent's castled. I could also castle. I still have two pieces to properly develop. I mean, the rook, castling helps develop the rook, so that's a first piece to think about. But the next two are the bishop and the knight. One order could be push this pawn and develop this bishop here. But actually, that doesn't really develop it particularly well, because if pushed and I go back here, thinking, okay, cool, develop bishop opposite the queen, then that traps the bishop. I mean, taking with the knight and then taking with the bishop would be 2 pawns for a bishop, and the 2 pawns in front of the king. So the king would be very, very airy. Maybe that is a thing. I have had a game recently where I gave up a knight for 2 pawns too readily, and it was a mistake. So I am cautious about doing that for very good reason. But they are very important pawns. Maybe my opponent would be scared of getting rid of those. But you know, my opponent probably has enough time to sort of run away with the king. Right, so I need to get used to speaking my thoughts out loud, because I think I convinced myself to choose between these 2 pieces to develop, and I ended up thinking, okay, I will develop the knight first, but rather than doing this, which has a very sort of narrow goal of trying to attack this bishop, but actually ends up with my knight on this not so good square. Like, what's this knight doing if not attacking this bishop? If this bishop just goes here, like, where's it going to go? Like, it's not, what's it doing? So I thought, okay, well, the knight can't go here because of this pawn, and instead the knight could go here and then here. This is an important knight. Obviously it's got a backup, but it probably won't want to take. It might do, but even if it does, I could recapture with the queen or with the pawn. I'm not scared of doubling these pawns. It's not a problem. I think from Andras Toth, I've learned that doubled pawns aren't this horrible, disgusting thing. They are perfectly fine in a lot of situations. In some situations they're bad, but in some situations they're good, and even and had like a strength in a position. And in this position, they're not isolated. This pawn isn't isolated. It could be backed up eventually. And it's a central pawn. It's really locking down this square. And it's looking at this square. Like, there's lots of benefits to this pawn. What's my opponent going to do? Okay, what's that pawn move done? It has weakened this bishop. It's now undefended. It's opened up this queen's eyes, but also closed this bishop's eyes. Neither of these were a real big threat, but just noting those things. What else has it done? It's also opened my queen's eyes to this piece. It's strengthened the defense of this pawn. It's now got 2 defenders. So if this was pushed and eventually taken, then it could take if it wanted to. think I'm going to castle. I don't see why I wouldn't in this position. I'm looking at this move and I'm thinking, okay, it attacks that, and if it goes here, then it's not in as good a position, I don't think. But my queen is also in not as good a position. It could be argued that it's in a better position, but now it can be attacked without me having to be in this position where it's an out. If it's attacked, I win another pawn. So in this position, that's not the case. So it can be sort of more attacking it's a better move for white, I think. I think I'm going to castle. I would like to get this knight out reasonably soon. And again, because it's a very slow game, because it's been quite a number of minutes before the game, since the game started, it feels as though, yeah, I should have thought about that move. It's not terrible, but I have to take that queen. Now this knight move is not so bad, I think. It blocks that pawn. This is a backward pawn. And I can look to attack it. This is also a backward pawn. No, it's not quite. It's got a potential defender, but I like this. It attacks the knight, the bishop still, because it only moved to the... Oh no, it never moved, sorry, the pawn was there. But it does still attack that bishop. How easy is that pawn to attack though? I could get this knight to attack it, this knight, but it would take a while. Probably 5 moves. Well, 4 moves to attack it, so... Although I could get 2 rooks behind the knight, blockade. This knight would blockade this pawn, and then I could get out of the way and attack it. I probably want another minor piece. I think this is a decent idea. I'm going to go for it. I think this should be my focal point for the time being. Whilst keeping my mind open to other things, of course. What I'd like to do is get back to being around equal on the clock as well. I'm 5 minutes behind. With a 20-second increment, you're never going to put an incredible amount of time pressure on someone, but I think that I would like to have an advantage on the clock going into what could be a reasonably scrappy endgame where 20 seconds isn't a whole lot of time to make a move. So if I can just be 2, 3, 4 minutes ahead going into the last 10 minutes, then I think that would be a really positive thing. I'm looking at this move to get into the f4 square. It means that this square is really weak and accessible. And it also means I can push this pawn. I like the idea of this pawn, but I don't really want to push this pawn because then this is now my backwards pawn for no reason. And when I say no reason, like I don't see what I'm doing here. Like I'm not really threatening to take because then this just helps white, I think. This pawn is at the moment pretty weak. If white wants to strengthen it, then with a pawn, then this pawn is creating a bit more air around the king than is necessary. I don't have a dark square bishop, so that's not massive. I don't think that's like massively important. I mean, obviously I'm thinking of moving this pawn, so yeah, this is, I don't know much about pawn structures and how I tend to be wildly inaccurate. Like sometimes I'm way overconfident thinking, oh, this is fine. My king doesn't need pawns. It doesn't need defenses. It's fine. So that's a candidate move. What can white do to prevent this? I guess pushed here, but then that doesn't actually work, so you can't do that. No, I don't think white can do anything. That's a really good, I think this is a good move. Yeah, and the bishop, where's the bishop going? If it goes here, I don't see how it's improved that much. It's a little bit improved, and it does obviously improve the rooks because they now see each other. I don't believe in doing this break because white won't take, I don't think, because then that just isolates these pawns. And this one would be really reasonably easy to capture, to get to capture back, like this, for example. Obviously this is covering it, so, but no, I don't think white would do that. I think white would just wait. So if this, okay, I'm gonna go for it. I'm now way down on time after all that talk about wanting to be 4 or 5 minutes up on time. I'll get there. So my rating is currently 1777 with a question mark because I haven't played enough games. My rating on my old account on lichess was about 1800. So if I win this, I think I'll be overrated. I think lichess will give me like 70 points or something like that. Because it's just going to quickly try and calibrate what my actual rating is. I do like this bishop. It's doing a great job from its home square. Like it's got, look at that. Like a little path has been made for it. And it was doing a nice job of defending this pawn, so I didn't have to worry about these kinds of things earlier in the game. Great bishop. My rating on chess.com is about 1500. So I am basically the same rating as Tyler 1. I don't know if you've heard of Tyler 1. He's a League of Legends streamer who just started focusing almost exclusively on chess, and the way he was focusing was almost exclusively just playing games over and over again, playing rapid games. And he also did puzzles, but I think more recently he's just been rinsing rapid games. No analysis, no theory. He's full on learning as he goes. I think I will have to challenge him to a race to 2000 or 2200 or something. The more I look at it, the more I really like these knights here and here. I feel like they're doing such great things. Like this one especially, because who's going to kick? Who's going to kick this knight? And it's on a dark square. They're both on dark squares, so this bishop can't touch it. Just lovely, lovely knights. And then potentially in the future, a bit of this. Something happens here maybe. The rook's eyes are open at this file, and then this knight becomes a target because this bishop can take, and then in a future where these two aren't around, potentially, then it's a very good situation. Also, this pawn being pushed forward, another a point about that, I said that there's no dark squared bishop, so maybe it's not such a bad thing, but actually this attacking the rook, and then this, if that pawn isn't there, that's an incredibly invasive piece. Okay, so potentially this bishop wants to go here. I see what you're looking for. I don't need to rush with this knight move, but it is reasonably forcing. Now that the rook's gone there, the bishop is just going to is almost certainly going to go there. It does. No, it's not. That's not a thing. Okay, let's go for it. Okay, so I won that game. I think a little bit prematurely. I think my opponent got a little bit mad due to a mistake they made, but I don't think it was necessary to resign. It is a good position for black, but let's go into it. Let's try and analyse this game. Okay, so let's have a quick look at what the Chess Dojo recommends for game analysis, something I'd like to improve on. So identify the critical moments of the game, something that's useful to do, because if you try and just analyse everything, then there's maybe 60 moves in a game, 60 moves each, so you could end up going quite deep and spending 4 hours analysing a game, but not really learning all that much because you've gone and picked indiscriminately. So picking those really important moments is really important. Pinpoint mistakes from both sides and offer improvements. I think my intuition is that it's more important to pick on the mistakes that you made because you're by definition more likely to make those types of mistakes, and so if you can improve those mistakes, then you'll learn more quickly. Annotate mistakes, strong moves with informant symbols. So double exclamation mark, a brilliant move. Single exclamation mark, a good move. Exclamation and then question is interesting move, but like a positive. You can have a question mark and then an exclamation mark, which is like a dubious move, but it has maybe interesting elements to it. Like maybe it has some positive aspect, but it's probably overall a negative move, like a bad move. Single question mark, a mistake, and a double question mark, a blunder. And it's hard to define what those are, but a blunder is just a bigger mistake. And then add a comment explaining why you gave the move that symbol. Okay, we'll try and do that. Make evaluations of key positions. White is better, black is better, unclear, etc. There are actually symbols to do that as well on lichess, I believe. Use the words. So use words to explain your understanding of the dynamics of the position. Okay. Try to note the clock times / time spent on each move, especially key moves. Okay. I'll try and keep those things in mind. Quick summary then. I've done the analysis. Took me ages, as you'd expect, but that's fine. I think one bit of feedback, one bit of analysis of my analysis is, where are all the variations? Like if you scroll down, I've just written stuff. I've just typed things. I think it would be useful for me to, I know that the feedback I get from people in the Chess Dojo would be, well, where's the variations? What would you do if this happened? What would you do if this happened? Give me some moves. So if I was on this move, for example, what happens if they take? Well, so then I would do takes, and then I would say, okay, I'll develop, and they might push, and I say take, and it's that kind of thing. That's an important aspect of analysis, which I've just not got into the habit of doing. So I'm not going to do it now. I'm not going to force it, but I know that is something I should improve over time. So just quickly then, we have, I'm calling that a dubious move, and the improvement would be that instead of pushing this pawn, just develop the knight. So I do have a variation, a 1 move variation, half a move variation. So develop the knight to c3. This is defended. It doesn't. If takes, then takes, and I wouldn't take, but yeah, it's fine. I can start developing. There you go. Look at this. This is a variation. Shut the hell up. Feedback. So okay, brilliant. Next one, we have this bishop move. Just avoids, loses a pawn, and I think instead of that, we should do this as white, and again, black would just have to get on with developing. Like this is probably likely, but yeah, these are simple. I think it's a reasonably simple game. I don't think much. Well, I'm sure that if I was better at playing chess, it wouldn't be so simple. I'm sure there's lots of complication here, but what was actually played and the other variations that I can spot aren't particularly complicated. I think here, instead of losing my queen, I could have actually gone here. So if here, I did have variations, I just didn't make them. Here we go. Well, come on, be fair. So if now the queen does this sort of thing, I can go, not that they would, but I can go here. And if they didn't do that, and they instead tried to scare my knight, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. But say if they were to do this with a view of eventually getting it, I can always just go here. This is a safe square, because if this, then this. And that's actually quite good fun. Wow, look at that. That's cool. If this, then this. Although that's not great, actually. I wouldn't be happy with that. No, I wouldn't be happy with that. But still fun. Okay. I'm pretty much just making variations just now, so I can add them, I think. I think subconsciously I'm editing my own behavior. Okay, lastly. In this situation, I think that white is better because I think it's a slow move. It doesn't do anything. I wasn't really threatening this, or at least if I was going to do that, what's the problem? That's fine. You've got a knight defending it, and you can always move out of the way eventually because there's nothing behind it. There's nothing. It's not being pinned to anything, so it's fine. I think it's okay. This is a bad move. It allows my knight to come in eventually, and now you can't play this move. You can't do this because of this. Again, can or can't. You shouldn't. So I think that this is a mistake. I think white is better because of that. And then lastly, I think this is a good move, but I think lastly, well, that was a mistake, obviously. That was a blunder. And I said here, it's a basic tactic, me releasing this attack on the knight and this pawn having too many jobs. If it does take, I take back like this and I've won a pawn. But the fact that I saw it back here when these pieces were still defending the knight, I'm quite happy about, because it meant that I ended up pushing this this pawn, and it was just lucky that my opponent missed it and undefended the knight, and it allowed me to do that. Okay, I will get better at analysing. I'll get quicker at analysing, which is part of getting better, I suppose. I will sleep tonight, and I will be less foggy tomorrow. So sleep very well. I'll speak to you tomorrow.